Are you on the lookout for something truly interesting when it comes to anthuriums? Stick around for this video and I'll show you an anthurium that has got really unusual foliage and is really interesting to grow. Let's dive into it. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So for today's video, it is going to be a continuation of the plant review series, and for the people that are new and are joining, welcome to this light insanity that is this plant review series. I no longer go through all of the rules or kind of ground rules for these review series, but I will add them on the side here so you can have a look. But yeah, today's plant, and I will show it to you now, is none other, this is quite a large plant at this point in time, the Anthurium Pedatum that I got from an Ecuagenera order just about a year ago now. So I have been growing this for a while. It is a very, very tall plant, but we'll talk about some of its structure in the background section. Okay, it's not very often that I can actually have an entire plant in the screen and I'm not holding it because it's tall enough to sit on my table. This is truly exciting for the people that have been here for a while and always see me carrying heavy plants. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. But yeah, this is the Anthurium Pedatum. Let me turn it around. It is a very stiff plant, so you might be able to see what I meant by interesting foliage. So you can see it's very hand-like, oh, I need another coffee, I think, today. Hand-like structure, basically. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, depending on how you count it, little leaflets on the one leaf. This is very much a one leaf. You can kind of see it. It's all the veination that's kind of coming out and splitting the leaf as it is. There, that's one of the oldest leaves, and I think this is one of the most recent hardened off leaves. I don't think there's any more kind of leaflets. If we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, there's a few more ruffles on the side, and I will show it to you so you've got an idea rather than me trying to keep it down below. That's the newest leaf. It's nice and shiny right there. But and for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you might have been able to see one yellowing leaf. I have left that on there just to show that that was one of the original leaves that the plant came with, and it's only just now deciding that it's time for it to retire. But yes, the background on this, and I'll show you before I forget because it's kind of cool. I do have a brand new leaf, and that's how it comes out. It looks a bit janky, but the people that have been here for a while know that I don't shy away from janky plants or janky support sticks. But yeah, this is a plant that I got from an Ecuagenera order about a year ago. So I'll link the video from that unboxing at the very top in case you haven't seen it, so you can have a catch up basically. But yeah, this has been with me for nearly a year now. And the interesting story behind this, and I'm trying really hard not to remove the pests because I need to talk to you about pests at the pests section. But yeah, this was a plant. The interesting story about this was that I didn't purchase what I thought I was purchasing, basically. That was on me. It wasn't anything to do with Ecuagenera or their website or me not understanding it. It was me having a bit of a moment, basically. So when I got this plant, I actually thought I was ordering the Pedatoradiatum, I think that's the correct word, of an anthurium, basically. And that is slightly different. This is one of the parents of that plant. So I will see if I can find a picture and add it here. It is truly beautiful. I do still want to get that plant. Shout out to North, who I did a video with a while back now, who has got this plant, and we had a bit of a chat during that video. And I did hear you, North. I kind of know what I'm getting myself into with that one, but I still find it exceptionally pretty. The interesting thing with this one, and that's why I'm including this in the background section, even though it wasn't the plant that I was thinking of, because this has got much thicker foliage, it's much bigger, kind of chunkier kind of leaflets. The other one is a bit more, it feels a bit more like one stem or one petiole has got multiple leaves on it. This one, everything is still very much connected. I think it is with the Pedatoradiatum, but as I said, I've not seen it up close. I've only seen it on videos and pictures, and It's eluding me now whether or not it's splitting fully, basically. But this was different. So when I opened it, I was just like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. And I will see if I can add some pictures and add them in front of this, basically pictures or videos, or when I did that original unboxing. And it came to me in really good condition. The roots were really great. That will inform the rest of this review series because I started with a relatively good plant in terms of how I got it into my care. So it was in a good state of health, essentially. That might not be the case, and you do need to take that with a pinch of salt with any of these review series. It depends on where I start with most of these plants. So this one, I was fortunate enough, so it had healthy roots, it had healthy foliage, it didn't really take too much of a beat when it came in through the post or through the courier service that Ecuagenera sends them with. So I was starting on a really good base with this, and it meant that the plant just kept going. So bear that in mind. If you get one that doesn't have all of that or comes to you and struggling, your kind of what they say in, I think it's like car shows, mileage might vary. So if you're starting with something that's really struggling, your review might be different than mine. And as always, I do encourage you, if you do have this plant and you want to leave your own review, please do so down below. I'd be really interested because I don't think an awful lot of people have this plant. I think the people that want similar plants to this might gravitate towards the Pedatoradiatum a bit more. But this review series, I will be highlighting why one of the parents might be a viable option as well. So coming into a speed of growth with this one, and it's really, really interesting because when I got it, and I'm trying to remember now, I think it had 1, 2, 3, 4 leaves, and that was a year ago. Was it 4 leaves? Maybe it was just 3 leaves, actually. I'll see if I can see it from the video, the pictures of the original unboxing, and I'll put it at the top there. And I think I've lost one as well, so it might have been 3 or 4 leaves. We are now up to 1, 2, 3, 4... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 leaves. So not too bad. In a year, it got an extra 4 leaves, if not 5 leaves. I would assume it's probably leaning towards the 5 leaves. 5 leaves. Oh, apparently I need more coffee today. This video is going to be epic. But yes, extra 5 leaves in a year. So roughly you're looking at a leaf every couple of months, maybe a bit more, basically. So not too bad. Again, benchmarking that against what I would see normally in my growing space. And if I benchmark it against the golden pothos in here in my conservatory, in the spring and summer, it might bring out 2 leaves on 1 vine. So yes, in relation to that, this is a bit on the slow side. However, the caveat to this is a relatively large and established Anthurium. And I think I got this as a medium-sized plant. This wasn't even a fully mature plant, so I dread to think what the full-size one would be. I doubt this was a seedling, but if it was, I will add it at the top there. I think this was a medium-sized plant, basically. So it was tall. And I'll bring it up so you can see it again. This is a tall plant. However, you might be able to see, and I'll talk about this more in accessories and care, that I'm trying to do this without dropping everything, but there is a plant tie keeping this all together. However, this is a plant that I have found to be really useful to fill a vertical space. As long as you pull it together, this is a plant that stays relatively kind of compact and vertical rather than sprawling everywhere. It can, if I didn't maybe have that plant tie there, it could potentially do that. But I found that in that respect, it's quite good. Now, the speed, you need to remember these leaves are quite large. And to be fair, and I will say this, and I'll show you that new leaf again, this little leaf here was right down at the base before I went on my holiday. So within 10 days, roughly, it's come all the way up here and it's already starting to unfurl. As with most anthuriums that are a bit more mature and they've got slightly larger leaves, it will take its time to mature. Now, if I benchmark it against my Queen Anthurium, and I did the review for that recently, and again, I'll link it at the top there, that one takes a very long time for the leaf to emerge and harden off, kind of looking at almost 2 to 2.5 months. This is not quite that bad, basically. So remember we were talking about before that might be 5 leaves within that year? that wasn't because it took a long period so it didn't do leaf comes out, slowly starts hardening off, takes 2 months, and then the next leaf comes on. It's a lot faster than that. But you do get a bit of a break, or at least I found I got a bit of a break between foliage, basically. Now, the other thing that I will say, because some people have started making comments on this on my videos in terms of the time of the year, this one for me has been consistent throughout the year. So it grew as fast in the summer as it did in the winter, which meant it was just stable, basically. There wasn't a slowing down that I experienced in the winter, and there wasn't a speeding up that I experienced in the summer. So bear that in mind. That's probably a positive thing for most people, I would imagine. But yeah, in terms of speed of growth, average, I would almost go as far as say for an established Anthurium, relatively fast, not hugely so, but it isn't going to be one that you're going to be looking at going, it's still not done anything. This keeps the interest going, basically. So coming into ease of propagation, and again, as with some of these that I've spoken about before, I have not propagated this yet. I would say that this probably won't be that easy to propagate, not for any other reason. It's also, actually, before I go into that, it has also brought out 2 inflorescences in the time that I have had it. I have chopped them back or basically pinched them off as soon as I saw them because I want the foliage. I don't need to see the bloom of this plant. I think when I found it online, it's nothing particularly exciting. The one Anthurium that I do want to still get, and I have heard all of you, I know you always send me suggestions when it comes out, I just haven't bought it yet. I know it's a bit more available, or at least I can find it, is the Anthurium wendlingerii, I think that's the one. And it's the one with the corkscrew or like little pigtail kind of inflorescence. That, let me be abundantly clear, if I get that plant, I will be letting that go to inflorescence probably quite regularly, because for me that is the most interesting thing about the plant. It is a strappy leaf Anthurium. I've got the Veterifolium behind me here, so you know I'm okay with. I've got that covered basically. So with this one, I took the blooms off, but the point I was trying to make with the inflorescences is that if you wanted to pollinate this plant, you can. And also, I did my other video on everything about Anthurium where I talk about sections. If you're going to be pollinating a plant like this, make sure that you check the section that it belongs to, and make sure that you're checking the section of the other Anthurium that you're going to be pollinating it with, because I don't think, and this is just an assumption, I don't know, I haven't checked this, I don't think this would fall under the Cardiologium section, which a lot of the Anthuriums, not all of them, but a lot of the Anthuriums that people might start off with, I think the Crystallinum might be in it, I think the Warwickinium, so the Queen Anthurium, is in that as well, but I don't think this one is, just by looking at the way that it's growing. And I know sections are a much more convoluted subject than that. So just the point I'm trying to make is make sure that you're checking to see that there's compatibility there, so you don't set yourself up for a bit of a disappointment really with that one. Now, on the point of kind of vegetative propagation, and what that means is essentially being able to take a cutting and rooting that cutting out to get essentially a clone plant of the mother plant, that's the bit that I'm saying is probably going to be tricky. And I will show you again. So very tall plant, but the actual growing area is right down here on this little base. So for how large the plant is and for how many leaves is, it is very compact at the bottom there. There are a tiny bit of aerial roots that are coming through, but the problem that I would imagine with this plant, as I said, I haven't propagated it, I'm just assuming here, that really narrow space, you're going to struggle to get a cut that's going to be clean without damaging the mother plant a bit at least. So do with that as you will. This one, I will also say, so far has not pupped. So it's not one that I got a second plantlet growing from the base of this. So if you're thinking you might be going that way, at least in my experience after a year, I still have not seen that happen. It might be because I've got it in relatively heavy semi-hydro mix, so the little pebbles. So I find sometimes when they pup, there might be some difficulty if it's pupping from really low, because it needs to go through all of those layers of like gravel. So it might be that, but in my experience, I have not seen this pup. So possibly okay with pollination, as long as you're checking the sections between this plant and the parent plant. And then in terms of vegetative propagation, so basically just taking it, cutting and propagating, I would assume a tricky. So coming into availability for this plant now, and I will add the price if I can find it at the very top there of how much I got this. I don't think it was particularly expensive. I don't think. I think it would have been kind of low to mid-low double digits, at least from Ecogenera where I bought it from. Whether or not, and I think I have seen this come up occasionally in the UK by other sellers, and it was probably a tiny bit more expensive, a slightly more juvenile plant as well. So there is that to kind of remember there. So you're looking at maybe high double digits. I don't think I've ever seen this in triple digits. Now, the availability of this plant is the interesting thing. And I hearkened about this in the very beginning of the video. I don't see this come up very often, if at all, basically. So I think I have seen the Pedatoradiatum, which is the one that I originally wanted to buy, come up more frequently than this. And arguably maybe it's because the texture of those leaves are the extreme form of this one. Do I think that's going to change? Probably not. Not enough people watch my videos to say that I am an influencer and all of a sudden the sales of this specific plant are going to spike just because you've seen this video and you might like what you've seen because you've maybe not seen this plant before. So I won't claim that. But if more people become aware of this and there's more of a demand, I think then we'll start seeing this come up into the market a bit more frequently. At the moment, as it stands, not that frequent, which is a shame, I will say, because this is a plant, and I'm going to be filming another video today as well, talking about the plants that I think are a good stepping stone going from a beginner plant collector, plant parent, to kind of intermediate, more advanced, rare or uncommon plants. This is going to be one that I'm going to mention because, at least in my experience, it has been relatively straightforward as an Anthurium. It hasn't had too many problems. Conversely, and this is the interesting thing here, based on what North was telling me and a few other people that I've kind of spoken to over the last few months, the Pedatoradiatum, which is the one that you see more of, which has got more of the extreme leaves, can be a bit more temperamental. So that's really interesting there, because a lot of the times the hybrids tend to be a bit hardier than the parents. But in this situation, based on at least my experience and comments from other people, so large pinches of salt here, basically, this one's, I would imagine, probably easier than the hybrid. So there is that to be said. So if people start getting into this, I would imagine there'd be a bit more of it coming into the market, and I would imagine the price would drop. I don't know whether or not the price is going to drop too easily because there's going to be more demand. It's not a particularly difficult plant, but as I mentioned, the vegetative propagation can be a bit tricky at times, and I don't know how fast this is of a plant to go from pollination to sizable plants. So I might bite my words there a bit, but yeah, it is one that I think has got the potential to become a bit of a favorite for a lot of people. Now, it doesn't tick a lot of the boxes, and you might see some white marks. Ignore that, because I was painting up the glass of the conservatory and some of it dripped on there, but nothing happened to the plants, so I just left it. It's not variegation, or it's not mold or a disease. It's just a tiny bit of like conservatory paint. But with this one, I do think that there is a lot of potential for people to kind of truly fall in love with it. And yes, it doesn't have the kind of velvety leaves, but the way that the leaves are and how thick they are and how robust this has been in my space, I would hazard a guess, and obviously it's growing in a conservatory, I would hazard a guess that this would be okay in household conditions as well. So that could mean a whole host of people that could put this in a house without worrying that it's going to have too many hissy fits, basically. But coming into pests now, and now I will try and lift this up and show you whether or not I'm going to be able to do this cleanly, is that leaf that is there. You might be able to see if I bring it a tiny bit closer there. And hopefully, if I hide my face, you might be able to see right there, the little white speck. Mealybugs literally the only thing that I have ever had on this plant. And when I say that is maybe, was there another one that I saw a moment ago? Possibly, yes, there is one in the nook of the petiole. So the point where the petiole will merge with the leaf, and I can never remember what that little area is called. There is a tiniest bit of a groove, and that might come up there if that's showing as a slightly different color. That's a bit of a maroon color there. There's a bit of a ditch. So that's the place that I see them all the time. The leaves are relatively textured at the back, and I'll show you now so you can actually see kind of what I mean by that. There is quite a turgid leaf. So you would imagine you'd find them underneath as well, but literally, considering the couple of mealybugs that I've picked up off this now, I've maybe picked up another 2 or 3 mealybugs and just picked them off like that since I got it. And for the people that have been here for a while, they know my space. Mealybugs can go around. Their mealybugs can play with my mealybugs, but they can move around quite a bit. And yeah, it is one that has been relatively, I don't want to say resistant, but no spider mites, no thrips ever, the occasional mealybug, and that's pretty much it. I don't think even when I had whitefly in the height of the summer, because it seems to be a thing that I get in this place, it doesn't do too much damage, so I worry less about that now. But relatively pest-free Anthurium, so there is that. Now, coming into care for this beast, essentially. So I will lift it up again so you might be able to see. So it is in semi-hydro it is in a water reservoir. The water reservoir, I started it within the first month of having it because I realized that the roots were very, very thick. And I will add pictures again or videos to the side so you can see what those roots look like. They are very thick, almost on par with clarinervium roots, which again is harkening on anytime you see those really thick, kind of almost Phalaenopsis orchid roots on an Anthurium, generally these days I can recognize it and say, this is going to be a hardy Anthurium. This is going to be an Anthurium that will just do its thing. Just make sure that you don't overwater it. That's the only thing with the Anthuriums with the really thick, chunky roots, is try not to overwater them because they will, I will say, not in my experience, do they quickly go towards root rot, but that would be their kind of Achilles heel. That would be where they would be more vulnerable, basically. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the care that I give this has pretty much been consistent since I got it. And I've kind of got the watering down pat in my space. This gets watered once a week. This is a Sunday watering plant, basically. And it has done it well. I fill up the reservoir. I'm not pulling back even now in the winter because I've seen some of the roots have gone into the reservoir. So that's a good sign to me that as long as they're happy and they're getting some moisture, that should be fine. I might pull back on it. I don't fill up the water reservoir quite as much in the winter. But yeah, I think that is pretty much it. It's not been a particularly difficult plant. Does it need a janky support stick? No. Does it maybe need you to put something like a plant tie so you can keep the shape a bit more so it doesn't sprawl and you can actually have it a bit more columnar? Yes. Did it harm the plant or did it stall it in its growth in any way or form? Absolutely not. But yeah, in terms of accessories and care, I have to say it doesn't need any specific accessories for itself. I mentioned the semi-hydro mix, and the people that have been here for a while pretty much know at this point that I was going to say nearly all, but no, all of my Anthuriums are in semi-hydro, and that's how I found works perfectly for me. And doing really well. It doesn't need to be fussed with. And this is an Anthurium. Remember that, basically. And based on what I'm hearing about the Pedatoradiatum, that one is one that does need fussed with. So this one does not need fussed with. Relatively simple. I would almost go as far as saying this is a better option than the Clarinervium. It's a bit more interesting. For the people that want the heart-shaped leaves, fine. But I'm weird and kooky, and I like odd-shaped plants, so this ticks a lot of boxes for me. So coming into final thoughts for this plant, and you might see where this is going anyway. So I'll start with the one that I usually do, which is knowing what I know now. If I didn't own this plant, would I purchase it? 100%. 100%. Especially considering the fact that this wasn't the plant that I thought I was originally ordering. Again, my bad. Nothing to do with anybody else because I didn't read things properly. Really cool plant. Really cool plant. I am so glad I have added this to my collection. I cannot tell you, basically. And it's not often that I will say that as passionately and with my chest as much as I am about an Anthurium. So that should tell you something, basically. Now, coming into the scoring of this plant, considering 0, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, how would I score this plant? I'll give you 2 scores. I'll give it a score for an Anthurium, and I'll give it a score for just a regular houseplant. For an Anthurium, I would give this a 9. Don't think I'd go as far as a 10. If this was a Pedatoradiatum and that was as easy as this has been, I would have probably given it a 10, but I'll dock a point for my own stupidity there, basically. But a solid 9 for an Anthurium. And in terms of how it is as a houseplant, it would definitely be a strong 8 for this one. Because I know it's not going to be for everybody. The foliage might be a bit tricky for people. It is very tall. So, and I'll bring it up again so you can see it. And you're looking at a lot of petiole, basically. So that might not be for everybody. If you don't mind that and you've got a space that you want to fill like that, that's fine. In terms of light with this one, bright and direct light has been absolutely fine. The foliage has remained the same color throughout, even when it was getting blasted by the summer sun. So there is that to be said for this. But yeah, a solid contender for a relatively easy and fun to grow Anthurium. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say about this plant. If you've got your own review, I'd be very interested to hear it because I don't know anybody else that I've met that has got this plant yet. If you do, I would love to hear your opinions and how it's been for you down in the comments below. If you haven't got this plant but you're interested, tell me why. Tell me what's piquing your interest with this, because I'm really curious. I know a lot of my audience, based on the comments, I'm assuming that most of you are into the kookiness as much as I am. So yeah, tell me why you might be interested in this plant. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.